Long before the bombs turned the world into a radioactive wasteland, one corporation promised a brighter future. They sold safety, they sold hope, they sold the promise that humanity could survive the end of the world. Instead, they built a legacy of lies, greed, and unimaginable cruelty. Anyone who's anyone in the wasteland has heard their name: Vault-Tec. But how did a company that claimed to save humanity become one of the most infamous corporations in history? Were they always as corrupt? Or could there perhaps be another force that's behind it all? America's #1 nuclear defense corporation existed as early as 2031, when it acquired and rebranded Morgantown's local college as Vault-Tec University, with some of their top executives and scientists either teaching or graduating from there. Not much is known about Vault-Tec in the earlier days, but what we do know is that Vault-Tec's ambitious plans quickly caught the attention of the United States government. Intrigued by the company's proposed network of underground shelters, government officials sought proof that the concept could actually work. In response, Vault-Tec constructed the Los Angeles Demonstration Vault beneath the Los Angeles Cathedral. Completed sometime before 2054, the facility served as a proof of concept, showcasing that a fully self-sustaining underground shelter was indeed possible and practical. Unlike the vaults that would follow, the demonstration vault was free of the cruel social experiments that would later make up Vault-Tec's legacy. When the Great War of 2077 finally came, citizens of what was once known as America would use this demonstration vault as a shelter. When the European Middle Eastern War, the New Plague, and the collapse of the United Nations resulted in a nationwide scare, the government decided to set Project Safehouse in motion in 2054. Project Safehouse would promise the average citizen safety from any nuclear strikes, famines, or any other catastrophe that might render the surface uninhabitable. By 2063, 122 commissioned nuclear shelters, or otherwise known as vaults, had been completed. While Project Safehouse itself was funded under contract by the federal government, the government was not the vault program's only backer. In fact, only one known vault was designed specifically with the government in mind: Vault 79, built to contain the gold reserves of the United States Bullion Depository. As the resource wars dragged on, and the risk of total nuclear annihilation increased, members of the secretive government, known as the Enclave, quietly invested into various contingency measures to survive the coming war. Funded by corporate and government money, these installations would enable the Enclave to continue waging war on whoever they deemed hostile, mostly communists, after the United States ceased to exist. The Enclave played a direct role in Project Safehouse, granting them access to every piece of data collected through the Societal Preservation Program. They also maintained contact over many, if not all, of the vaults through a facility known as the Enclave Vault Research Control. All vaults were designed to feed data to the Enclave. Of the 122 known public vaults, 17 were designed to work as advertised. These would come to be known as control vaults. The 105 other vaults, aptly named experimental vaults, were presented with a variety of scenarios, ranging from harmless and annoying to downright lethal, to gauge how humans would react and how they would survive them. Some were not provided with enough food synthesizers for their population. Others housed only men. Many were programmed to open prematurely, exposing their residents to the wasteland long before it was safe to do so. To the Enclave, the vaults were seen as more laboratories to conduct experiments in, and the residents were unwitting test subjects. Every experiment was carefully documented to further the Enclave's long-term ambitions, and those ambitions went far beyond rebuilding a world devastated by nuclear war. The Enclave intended to use the data gathered from the vault's experiments to develop a massive, multi-generational starship, one capable of carrying humanity to an entirely new planet, leaving the ruined Earth behind forever. Meanwhile, Vault-Tec's own priorities differed from those of its shadow sponsor. For one, Vault-Tec executives such as Barbara Howard and Bud Askins saw the imminent nuclear war as an opportunity to wipe the slate clean, and reshape mankind in their own vision. To achieve this, Vault-Tec approached some of the most powerful corporations in the United States, including Big Mountain, Repcon Aerospace, Robco Industries, and Westech. Each company were offered control over several vaults, giving them the opportunity to create their own social experiments. To ensure the experiments would happen, Barbara floated the idea of these megacorporations instigating the nuclear war deliberately, allowing an intentionally designed society to arise from the ashes, configured to eliminate friction, conflict, and ultimately war. Bud himself would carry out a personal contingency plan to ensure Vault-Tec's post-war dominance via the 3 vaults in Los Angeles. It is unclear if these corporate leaders really did follow through on their plans. At least one attendee, Robert Edwin House, CEO of Robco, had no plan to take any action and did not believe the others at the meeting would either. He instead believed there was an unknown third party that was manipulating Vault-Tec and pulling their strings. While at the same time he could not identify them, he eventually came to realize that the third party was the Enclave. Regardless of Barbara Howard's proposal, the corporation acted elsewhere to ensure its own dominance after the Great War. Vaults such as Vault 63 and Vault 88 were designed with the intentions of creating technologies that would be used by all Vault-Tec vaults to help establish better post-war society under their guidance. Special vaults were designed for Vault-Tec staff and management, from which they would oversee the rest of the vaults. Vault-Tec's ambitions even extended beyond those of the US government, and, in some cases, beyond the Enclave itself. Secret directives instructed certain overseers to ignore government authority if necessary. In Vault 76, for example, the overseer was ordered to seize control of the Appalachian Automated Launch System and secure the region's nuclear arsenal. Now, with Vault-Tec firmly tightening its grip on America, there was little left for the company to do but play the waiting game. Mostly all vaults had been completed. The experiments had been carefully planned, and the nation's growing fear of nuclear war continued to drive people towards Vault-Tec's doors. By the beginning of 2077, the company had positioned itself exactly where it wanted to be. All that remained was to wait and see whether the world would destroy itself or whether someone else would ensure that it did. By January 2077, Vault-Tec had been voted the company with the brightest future in the United States. Following the American victory at the Battle of Anchorage, fears of an all-out nuclear conflict sent the company's stock price soaring. Vault-Tec quickly capitalized on the growing panic by selling individual reservations for spaces inside its vaults. But beneath the company's reassuring image lay a troubling reality. As the private corporation responsible for America's entire nuclear contingency program, Vault-Tec had a financial incentive unlike any other. Its profits depended on one thing: convincing the public that nuclear war was inevitable. Any peaceful resolution to the resource wars, or more importantly, the Sino-American War, would have devastated demand for vault spaces and threatened the company's enormous profits. Ironically, the safer the world became, the worse Vault-Tec's business performed. This created a dangerous conflict of interest. The company had every reason to see the war continue, and perhaps even to see nuclear war become a reality. After peace talks between the United States and China began following the Battle of Anchorage, Vault-Tec's projected sales declined sharply, giving the corporation yet another incentive to take more direct action. Despite the vaults being in higher demand than ever, years passed without a nuclear exchange, and many Americans grew complacent. Repeated false alarms created a classic Fry Wolf effect, causing participation in vault drills to steadily decline. Until October 23, 2077. After decades of escalating tensions, resource shortages, and a world slowly marching toward self-destruction, The inevitable finally happened. The Great War began, and in a matter of hours, civilization, as humanity knew it, ceased to exist. Across the globe, nuclear weapons were launched. Cities were reduced to ash, and billions of lives were forever changed. The world that Vault-Tec had spent decades preparing for had finally arrived. For those who reached the vaults in time, the promise of survival became a reality. For countless others, the warning came too late. Some made it through the vault doors before they sealed shut. Others were left behind, forced to face a firestorm above.